p.m. It's your chance to call in a live request for your favorite rock guy with no enthusiasm. Shut up, Alvy. I'm not done yet. It's your chance to call in for a live request of your favorite rock and roll tunes. That's today at 3 p.m. and it goes until tomorrow at 11 p.m. We have a guest, and you can hear him in the background.
The guy giving Brian a well-deserved hard time. His name is Alvy Moore, and you'll know this gentleman as the guy who played Mr. Kimball on Green Acres. And for years, I know Brian and I feel the very same way. We felt as though Green Acres was a bit ahead of its time as far as its writing and its comedy content.
Extremely innovative.
And Mr. Kimball had a gigantic role in...
Did I tell you that only recently I wrote a letter to TV Guide? A certain amount of... there's several adjectives for people who are critics or so-called. Mm-hmm. I can't use them on the air. But there was
you can. This is our show.
I see. Well, there was about 10 of them that decided to select the 10 worst comedy shows ever put on the air. Mm-hmm. Right. And lo and behold, guess what pops up in this mass of 10 people?
You've got to be kidding.
Green Acres. Fred Silverman was one of them.
He's a bastard.
Fred Silverman was the head of CBS at the time, and I don't know what transpired there, but all rural shows went off the air.
Yeah,
at the time
Andy Griffith, Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, they wiped it.
And right, Hee Haw. Of course, Hee Haw was such a failure that it went... now, you may not like Hee Haw or not, but the darn thing went syndicated.
Oh, it worked.
And was bigger, and it's still going today. Now, that's a bright move on your part. I'm not a letter writer, but I wrote TV Guide, and I got a nice response that said this will give them to the editor because we like to hear from our viewers. Well, and I said, well...
Something interesting about what you were just talking about, we were aware that was the case, and in every situation with the Andy Griffith program, Green Acres, and Beverly Hillbillies, somebody made the decision to wipe all rural shows off, and they were at that time in the top 10, were they not?
Mayberry FD, I think, was in the top 10.
Right, and y'all were highly rated.
Cleveland Amory, another great critic of the TV Guide era, when Green Acres first came out, said that if you continue putting shows like Green Acres on the air, there will be no television.
Ladies and
gentlemen. What was
gentlemen.
his problem with it?
I have no idea.
What's the deal?
Well, I think what they did, the town never accepted Green Acres when it was on the air. They looked at it as a cornball show. They didn't look at the writing, because that writing was very sophisticated in its way.
Way ahead of its time.
I used to wonder, we'd go on hiatus in those days, and we'd work a few months, and then we'd be off a lot of months. But in those days, there wasn't anything else going on, so you were really on a hiatus. Now, during that time, I would suspect that when we come back, these two writers, Dick Chevrolet and Jay Summers, would have all the scripts written for the next season. But they'd only have maybe 4 or 5 done, and I never understood that until I realized that what they were doing was they were reading in the paper a current subject.
Yes.
Then they would sit down and hurriedly write a story on that subject. The phones. That's why today when you watch Green Acres, which by the way appears 3 times now every day,
and I see all 3 of them.
12:30 from Anaheim, 3 o'clock from CBN, and 2 o'clock in the morning from. Very interesting thing. My son is taping some of these for me, for my posterity, and he discovered that they're all edited differently. CBN has the less amount of time. They do more commercials.
Right. They do this to all of these shows.
Anaheim has at least about 2.5 more minutes of Green Acres on than the other 2.
It's real frustrating when you can't get that last 3 minutes of the show because they go to a commercial.
But I think Green Acres, as I say, and I think now the college kids and everything like that are really latched onto it because it is sophisticated, and today's problems are the same problems we had then. I mean, with 72, we got the same telephone, air.
Well, for example, Brian, to this day, is still climbing his telephone pole to answer the phone.
Isn't that amazing?
And I don't know why.
Well, you can tell that by the way he makes announcements.
All right. All right.
Now, you're never going to hear the end.
Now, do people come up to you and say, do him, do Mr. Kimball?
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
And I'll tell you why it's difficult. There's a friend of mine that does Stan Laurel. He does the commercials of Stan Laurel. You've seen him.
That was pleasant.
That was really nice. Can we all do that in the room? Okay.
You know what it is? It's my son. I got bad sinus.
Yeah, so do we.
Yeah, we all do. Everybody in the room,
we all do. Let's we can have a trio. The 3 sinuses.
There you go.
What was I saying?
I don't know.
I'm sure it was terrible.
I have a question for you, though.
Why? Oh, you asked me about doing
Hank
Kimball.
Yeah.
he is an excellent imitator, and it's tough for him to do Stan Laurel, as it's tough for me to do Hank Kimball, because he never played by himself. He played off of someone. Eddie Albert was there. He would change the subject matter very quickly, but it's tough just to do him.
Yeah.
Outside of doing It's a Nice Day, well, it's not a nice day. Outside of that, I don't know where you go.
I like that, though. That was enough. That was good. That got me laughing.
But I got an example of that on, we were talking, I think, previous to this, about how this part came about. The part of Hank Kimball was never written as a regular role. It was written as a two-part a series thing, and he was gone. And if you ever see the first 2 episodes that Hank Kimball did, he was very straight. He didn't do any of the nonsensical things that he did later on. No, he actually was a county agent that came over, and when Eddie Albert fell through the roof, he said, "Gee, I know a guy that can fix that for you." The telephone, yes, I know the company, and he was very straight with this thing. I've looked back on it and have wondered why that he ever started writing this as a running role.
What he saw that he liked
what he
so much.
saw, and the only place I came up, and I told the story one night at SC when he was there too. The end of the second episode, the county agent was standing there with Eddie Albert, who had bought this disastrous farm. I mean, that Pat Buttram had sold him.
Mr. Haney.
But he was extremely thrilled. He was much pleased, and he stood there with a big smile on his face, and he looked over this old farm and said, "Well, what do you think of my farm?" Well, the county agent looks at this disaster, and he can't really tell this man what he really thinks, because he can look at him and see it would be a big disappointment. So he legitimately, he looked out and he said, "Well, it's a nice farm. It's well, it's not a nice farm. Well, I guess maybe it's a nice, and I think it was that the way that anybody else could have read those lines like, it's a nice farm. Right. Well, not a nice farm. But it just happened to be my piece of timing.
Yeah.
It hit me.
Yeah.
And therefore he could write that.
It would seem that happened to each and every character on that show, because each character had its own little world that the character lived in, and you loved it. Every time whoever would come on the screen, you just loved it because you knew something was about to happen.
Well, I don't know how they ever wrote all those characters and kept them separated. They never ran into one another. Frank Cady, that played Sam Drucker. Tom Lester, that played Eb the Hard Hand.
What's Eb doing now? What's Tom doing?
Matter of fact, he would have come. I would have told you about him and had him down there with me today. He's in Laurel, Mississippi, with his family on vacation. He and I have been the 2 writers that wrote Green Acres wrote a feature. Tom went to him one day and said, "Look, there's Arnold the pig and all that stuff like that. A pig seems to be a sort of a catchy thing. Why don't you write a story about a pig?" So. That also works too. That you notice I did turn my head.
Yes, thank you very much.
Really
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Right into the
So they sat down and very quickly wrote a story about a pig that we call Waldo, and it's about a pig that inherits a sausage factory. It's a script that he started out with, and he and I have been trying to get it on the
networks or air.
On the whatever. Downtown is where we're trying to get it. But it's very difficult to get a family show off the ground, guys. Now, if we had this pig in some sort of sensuous poses and compromising
have him sleep with Jim Baker. That'll get it on.
Yeah, no, we'd have a winner and people would flock with money. But a good family show, and this is a funny show about this pig, and they'll do it. We have a videotape. Anyway, getting back to the thing, Tom and I have been trying to put this together, and we hope to do that next year.
All right, Alvy, before you leave today, we want to talk to you for one more break.
Sure.
We want to come back and find out what you're going to be doing for the holidays, but before we go on this particular break, tell us right now, on the set of Green Acres, who was the troublemaker? Who was a problem? Tell us the name. Was it Ava? Ava Gabor?
Oliver!
No, I don't. Ava... that nature would get upset at times, and Eddie Albert was a loner. He didn't bother anybody. I mean, he would do his thing and then he'd go back to his room. He's a nice man. He was always very, very nice to me, and it's very pleasant, man. I enjoyed working with Eddie. I suppose Ava, if you had any trouble at all, I suppose she would be the one that you'd come closest to, but
now Mrs. Ziffel looked like she could slap somebody around if it got to it.
Mrs. Ziffel was an ex-leading lady. If you ever saw Mrs. Ziffel back in the early days, she was a beautiful lady who played leading roles. The original Mrs. Ziffel. But I think that the reason we all kind of got along the way we did, we weren't there long enough. See, I would come in and do 4 pages and go home. I worked about 1 day a week.
There wasn't a lot of hanging out.
No, Pat would come in and do his thing. I'd come and do my thing and so on. Yeah. So it was always somebody new, and there wasn't too much idea of getting into a lot of problems there.
All right, a few more questions for you. Stick around, all right?
All right, we're kind of giddy and shocked today because on this particular break we do have commercials.
A commercial!
We have commercials.
A commercial on our show!
We actually do have commercials, so we're kind of surprised about that.
What a thing. What a great thing.
It's a bolo stick.
Yeah, and traffic's up next with
The Murph. Card tricks on the radio.
A day but.
I want you to
radio card tricks.
Say stop.
Stop.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, there. You get that card. This is your card there.
All right.
Now, you look at that card. Show the rest of the guys.
All right. Everybody see it?
We're not supposed to say what it is.
Okay. No.
Let me see it again.
Now I'm going to show you from my wallet. You've seen me take my wallet out. I have the same card that you have just picked, right?
Wrong.
Wrong. What card you got?
I have the 4 clubs.
Let me see it. Well, I have 4 clubs, too. I mean...
Get out of here.
Okay, well enough.
Radio card tricks.
Yes, sir, buddy. Ain't nothing like one of them. All right, now... Alvy, we've talked about your role on Green Acres. We talked about the people that you worked with and so forth and so on. What are you going to be doing for this holiday season? Do you have family and friends other places than L.A.? Or?
I throw up a lot.
Good. That's good to know. I always like to have that.
And does this a lot.
No, I'm sticking around. We're staying in town. I have 3 children here. One, my oldest son just got through working on a picture as a grip. He just moved out from Indiana.
Wait, as a grip? We've always wondered, what is a grip?
What is a grip?
This is what you see at the end of the movie, the credits?
Well, you start right up with a key grip. A key grip is a man that has control of all movement of all your sets, all your scenery. He helps maybe set some lights, and it's a general utility type guy.
What's he pull down a year?
Yeah.
What's he pull down a year?
I don't know. They make good money, though. But you got the key grip, and then you got a guy called Best Boy.
Now, I've always wondered about the Best Boy.
Best Boy is his right-hand man. That's
I'm sure he is.
That he uses.
Right hand.
Right hand.
Yeah.
And then you got maybe a couple other grips that work there. So your grip department maybe be in an independent could be 4 people. In a big major Warner Brothers, you got 480 and 379 of them are sitting around.
So like our show.
You're paying for these people.
All right.
Yeah, so that your son...
And anyway, that's my son. And my daughter works for WEA, Warner Brothers Electric Atlantic Records. She works in the promotion department. Matter of fact, all records that you may have been in contact with her here if you play records at all and use Warner Brothers Electric Atlantic Records. You may have talked to her out there.
We do.
Her name is Janet Moore. And then I have a younger daughter who is what they call a foliist. That Russ Tinsley... she works for Russ now and then.
What does she do?
We all want to know what a foliist is, don't we?
I'd like to know what a foliist is.
Foliist is a person who lays in the sound when the picture is over and they haven't your footsteps.
Yeah.
For instance, you all see Platoon?
Yeah.
Well, she did Berenger, the villain that had the scar on his face.
Right.
She did all the sound for him, all those footsteps.
You know, I knew that. I thought that when I was watching Platoon. I said, that must be Alvy Moore's daughter doing that.
Yeah,
with that style she has.
Yeah, she has a touch.
Yeah, her name is Allison Moore. And then I have my wife, by the name of Carolyn Moore, who I presume right now is laying in bed with the radio on listening to this and saying he's made an ass of himself.
No.
So do your kids have kids? Do you have grandchildren?
Yes. Well, my 2 daughters aren't married, but my son was, and unfortunately they are divorced now, but I have 4 grandchildren who live about 4 miles away from me. They're up in the mountains visiting their other grandfolks this now, but they'll be back, and we see them out there the other weekend. So I got 4 grandkids running around. They're kind of neat.
So when does the big present exchange happen? Today or tomorrow?
I'm not sure. This is a kind of a funny time. Normally, we've either done this tonight or tomorrow morning, but I think we're not doing that till tomorrow afternoon for some reason.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many
I'm not sure what it is.
Well, there's so many different people involved. You probably all got different plans and stuff, and that's the only time you can all get together.
Oh, yeah. We're all going 4 different ways. My wife goes to Palm Springs. I go to Arrowhead. My daughter's... then we call up each other.
That's special. That's always special.
No, we have a family gathering, and I cook. Cooking is my hobby. And,
oh, really?
You don't mind if me and Brian come, do you?
Not at all.
Yeah,
not at all. I live in Phoenix.
We'll drop by. Yeah,
Thanks,
we'll be
Alvy.
right over.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
sure
we'll be
will.
hopping in the car for that party.
All right. Well, we've been talking with Alvy Moore, who again played Mr. Kimball, the agricultural agent on Green Acres, and it was an honor to have you here, Alvy. We know that this being Christmas Eve morning was tough for you to get up and come up and be with us.
Not at all. Now that I'm here, do I have to leave?
Yeah, you do.
No, you don't.
No, you stay all day long.
We got bottles of.
In fact, we're going to be singing Christmas carols in a minute with Art. You can sing along with us. Can you sing, Alvy?
Well, I can sure try.
Okay, that's all we ask for.
Sing as well as we can, I promise.
Again, we do appreciate you, though,
Do you
for
have the
coming in.
words to these songs?
Not at all. No, we make them up as we go along, Art.
We just fumble through.
Deck the things and...
Yeah, deck the things. Let's sing deck the things.
You'll do just fine with it.